I'm Amanda Shekarchi, and I am joined by Carissa Carter, who is a country artist from Texas. Her latest singles are Between These Two Bar Stools and Whiskey Me Away. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. It's great to finally get to sit and talk with you. I know we've talked a lot via text.
Yeah, I'm excited to actually dive into this. So something I saw, which was really cool, is that you got to play Chick Fest in Florida a few weeks ago. How was that?
It was fantastic. I was in Key West, though, when the Verizon towers went down, and when they came back up, my phone thought I was in Cuba, so I had a little bit of trouble getting around the island for a day, but after that, it was great.
That's wild. Yeah. How did it feel to perform these songs live?
It was such a unique experience because a lot of times, you play these really big festivals and then you'll go play a show and it's just you and the bartender, or it's a rare occasion to get to play a show where people are actually sitting and listening to the words you're saying and not talking over you and just really absorbing the song and feeling it in the moment. And it was so cool to have a whole room full of people doing that on every single song. And that just touches my heart. It was amazing.
That's so special. Yeah, I've seen that here. We have a festival called North by Northeast, and it's very much like that, where they bring, smaller venues, but you really see everyone being engaged with it.
Yeah, it's crazy because you'll look out at the crowd and, I tend to look down while I play guitar. And then when I looked up, I was like, they're all looking and they're listening and they're not talking and they're being so respectful and courteous, and just I was shaking all their hands and saying hi and just thank you, because it really warms my heart, because I've had a lot of shows I've played where everybody talks and that's fine, I'm glad they're having fun, but it's just a different feeling when they're there and they're there to participate in the exchange of energy that's happening.
That's beautiful. And another fun thing, I saw that in 2025 you got to attend the CMA after party in Nashville. How was that?
That was a lot of fun. I did not think we were actually going to get to go. We did, and it worked out. So when we got to walk the red carpet, and my friends, I remember when we finally got in, they all looked at me and they said, "We actually are here." And I said, "I know, I can't believe it either."
Yeah, that's such a crazy experience. Hopefully you'll actually get to maybe be up on that stage at some point.
That's the dream, but I'm already living the dream, now I'm just like, how big can it get?
Well, let's dive into some of your music. What's the production process usually like for you?
I remember when I started to look for a producer to record with, I was calling and calling and calling places. And I'm very much, whenever I am looking for someone to work with, a vibe person. And I can tell pretty quickly if we'll work well together. And I had narrowed it down to a couple of producers, but I still wasn't 100% sure if I wanted to work with them or not. And I was on the Texas to Tennessee podcast, and Steve Talbot, he helps with the podcast, and he told me about a producer named Tim Lightyear. And he gave me his number and I called him, and I went over to Royce City, which is close to where I live here in Texas. And I sat in his studio and I immediately knew I wanted to work with him. So we booked some dates, and over the course of last year, we would go in, and I went in with my band and we would play on the songs. And it starts, first you record bass and drums, they call it the rhythm section, and then anything else you need to, give it a nice groove. And then you start adding all the different layers. It's not a short process, to say the least, especially too, because I remember when I was talking with Tim, I said, I don't know my sound. I've never done this before. I've been in to do background vocals on other people's songs. I've seen part of the studio process, but I've never actually had a song where I'm coming in and it's going to be released under my name at this point. So it was the coolest thing ever. And I get to go back here in March and record one more song coming out this year too, because I decided I needed one more. So I'm really excited, but it's a beautiful thing to watch something you wrote a year or 2 years ago come to life in a brand new way.
That resonates with me deeper than you know, because I literally just experienced that this week with a song I'm working on. So that's amazing. So let's dive deeper. So I want to talk about Between These Two Bar Stools, and the line that I really liked was in the chorus where you say, "Between these two bar stools, one of us is giving up and one of us is falling in love." What was inspiration for that line, or for the song in general?
So my first trip out to Nashville in November of 2023, I met this guy at a hotel that I was playing at, because at this point in my life, I was playing any show I could get, and I was just trying to save up money to record songs. And this guy came in and he was like, "Hey, help you get some rights out in Nashville. And I was like, wait, really? And he was like, yeah, but you're going to have the guts to go on your own. And I said, well, I got the guts if you're willing to help me book some rights, because I don't know how Nashville works. I'm from Texas. So I went out to Nashville, and I had this title probably for a year. And every time I sat down to try and write it on my own, I couldn't get the song out. It just wouldn't come. And I remember thinking, this is going to be the first song I really get to sit and co-write with, because I also hadn't co-written much at this point either, because I live in Texas. Texas is huge. You can drive 17 hours and still be in Texas. So when I got out to Nashville, it was a Friday night, and I had one friend out there that I knew. It wasn't the person who was helping me book rights, but he had told me about a writer's round at the Commodore Grill there at the Holiday Inn Express. And I went in, and I didn't know that when you went to Nashville and you went to a writer's round, that you dress down. It's a chill, low key vibe kind of thing. People are there to listen to songs. They're not there to, discover their new favorite artist. Hopefully they do, but they're there for the songs. And that's a really cool thing to experience as well. But when I went in, I had on rhinestone boots. I had on rhinestone jeans. At this point in my life, I was teasing my hair up to Jesus, and I had on this really sparkly top. And I remember there was this woman. She was sitting at the bar, and she was in her 80s, I would learn. And she looked at me and she goes, "You're not from around here, are you?" And I said, no, I'm not. And then I asked her if I could sit by her. And she said, "Are you sure?" And I said, "Well, I don't know anybody else here. And you said hi." And she was like, "Touche." So I sat down, and we ended up talking for 3.5 hours over the course of the night. I was there for a total of 5 hours. She left for a period, and she came back down from her room to watch me do my round at 10 p.m. And I got the best guitar lesson in my life. And I also got the best vocal lesson in my life. And after all of this, I went back to Texas in January. And when I was playing in the Fort Worth Stockyards, I saw her portrait was on the Wall of Legends at the White Elephant Saloon, which is a very honorary wall, to say the least. There's only 2 women on that wall. She was one of them. And I found out from the bartender after she left, like, one of her best friends is Willie Nelson. She's a master of flamenco guitar. She's done it, though, for over 60 years full time. And I remember I got this advice from her: you'll feel it in your bones if it's what you want to do. And I've never had a doubt since I talked to her about whether or not I wanted to do this. But when I went into my write the next day and I was talking with Jessica and Amy, I was telling them about my conversation with her and stuff. And they're like, "That's crazy that she's the first person you met in Nashville, because I guess everybody in town, you meet her when you're supposed to meet her, and then you never see her again." And I haven't seen her again. I don't even know if she's still alive. I've tried to Google it, but I haven't seen anything. But she was really inspiring. She's was the person behind the song on that one. And I recorded that song because it to this day is still one of my favorite songs I've ever been a part of writing. It's just the story of my life. I'm always between 2 bar stools talking to people who are older than me and getting lots of golden nuggets of wisdom.
Wow, that is so beautiful. And another one I want to talk about is a song you recently put out, Whiskey Me Away. What was the inspiration behind that one?
I was out line dancing with friends. I love cutting a rug on the dance floor. And one of them had a glass of whiskey. I don't drink. I was the DD, but she just looked at me and said, "This whiskey's about to whiskey me away." And she ran off to go do more line dancing. And I just remember I wrote in my phone, "Whiskey Me Away." And I was like, that's a song. I'm going to go home and write that.
I love it. It's so good. And like, I want to pivot to this because, your music is so personal. How do you feel knowing that these stories are out there in the world?
It's terrifying. But I also find it thrilling, because if there's always a piece of you in a song, there has to be some real life experience, at least for me, to be able to write a song and feel like it has a heartbeat and just a really deep emotion that someone else can connect with. And my writing's changed a lot in the last year. Like, my goal this year is to be as raw and real through song as I can, because for me, the songs are just so much better than, if I just make up a story and hide behind the story. Because I noticed last year, a lot of the songs I was writing, there were pieces of truth in them, but I was tended to create characters to hide behind. And when you get on stage, you're completely exposed. And I really wanted that to be reflected through the songs I was writing and I'm singing and performing out. So that's been my goal this year. But it's terrifying, because people are either going to like it or they're going to hate it, and you take it or leave it at that. At the end of the day, you wrote the song, you performed it. That's all you can do. So
Yeah, and on that note, like, one that really felt personal to me was Untamed. What does that one mean to you?
I wrote that with my friend Shelby Ballinger. She's one of my best friends here in the Texas music scene. She was one of the first people I ever met because back when I started, I didn't know what I was doing. So I started going to open mics just to see if I could meet people who might be able to help me figure out how all of Texas works. Because at this time too, I was like, I don't know how to travel out of state. I'm going to start close to home. And I met her and she taught me how to get shows, and a couple of other people helped as well. I asked her if she wanted to go co-write, and she hadn't really co-written much either, and I hadn't. And I was just like, let's do it, like let's go spend a day together. And when I got to her house, she said she wanted to write a song about being a free spirit and how, we're always driving and we're on the open road, and our life has rules, but it doesn't have rules a lot of times either. Whenever you're a musician, you show up where you're supposed to play, and then whatever happens on stage happens. And I had the title Untamed, and that's how the song came to be. It just poured out. And I remember after we finished writing it, I told her I was going to cut it. And she was like, "No, you're not." And I was like, "Yeah, I am." And then a year later, I got to send her the final mastered version of the song, and she's really excited for it to come out. I am too. It's one of my favorites on the EP.
Yeah, it's one of mine too. It's just so raw and personal and vulnerable, and I can't wait for everyone to hear this one.
Yeah, I remember when we were writing it there. So when you start going to Nashville, I hadn't been to Nashville yet whenever we wrote it, but I started to realize there's not rules to writing a song, but there's just some guidelines most people follow. And we kind of tossed all those out the window when we wrote that because neither of us knew them. So it's a really cool, unique song in that sense because it does not follow a lot of the Nashville formula, if you will, for a song. And it's very much, in my opinion, a representation of Texas music.
I love it. Yeah, so we've touched a little bit of this throughout our conversation, but when did you realize music was something you wanted to pursue?
I realized it at 18, but I wasn't brave enough or bold enough yet to really go after it because when I was in high school, I got a full ride to college, and my parents are very practical people, and they told me, they're like, that doesn't happen very often. So they said, go to college, get your degree, music will be there. And I went to college. I didn't write any songs my first 2 years, and then I went through a really bad breakup as one does in college, and I walked out of the coffee shop because the town I went to college in was smaller than the one I grew up in. And I remember there was this recording studio. I recorded 4 songs. A year later, I recorded 4 more. That's the scratches if you go listen to it. It's a very young me. I was 20 there when I recorded all of those songs, but and 21, but it's one and done takes. I didn't get to, go back and fix anything. Like I was playing and singing and it was done as soon as it ended. I had to do it in one take. And my friends, when we were out driving one night, they found these in my email and they were like, "Oh my gosh, like these need to be on Spotify." And 2 weeks later they had put them on Spotify. And I remember I was like, this is crazy. And the only new song on that whole project is Walkabout. That was the only song I had written in college at that point. And it ended up getting on a playlist in Sweden. And I saw it got 10,000 streams. And I remember going, this might be a lot easier to do than I think it is. And it may look a lot different than, I've seen it on TV and, the Opry and all of that growing up. But I was like, I think I might be able to make a living doing this because I've always wanted to make a living doing music. And I just kind of, after I graduated, realized I didn't want to go into law school, and I decided to give myself a year. And within 6 months of graduating, I had a full 6 months worth of shows booked, and the rest is history.
That's amazing. That's awesome. Now, who are some artists that you would love to collaborate with?
Oh, I'm an old soul, so it definitely Bonnie Raitt. I would love if Linda Ronstadt would ever lend her voice, 100% going for that one. Alan Jackson. Anybody from the Allman Brothers band, I love them to pieces. I would also love to like Carrie Underwood. I grew up singing a lot of Carrie Underwood, Reba, Dolly, Chris Stapleton too. I was about to say, and then I've got. I'd love to just sit and write with some of them as well, just to learn because you learn so much in a writer's room.
Oh, definitely. And for people who want to learn more about you and your music, where can people find you?
Yeah, on social media, all of my handles are Carissa Carter Music. So Carissa Carter, Carter Music. And then my website is carissacartermusic.com. So I'm everywhere. If you need help finding me, we got you.
Thank you so much, Carissa. Carissa's latest single is Whiskey Me Away, with Untamed coming out in March.
Thanks again for having me.